Yo, what's going on YouTube? It's your boy Razzles again, and I'm back with another MX Bikes video. This episode is going to be really good, so make sure you stick around all the way to the end because we're going to be going over 3 topics that you guys are really going to enjoy, and it's going to make you a hell of a lot better at MX Bikes the game. So I'm just going to stop talking and let's just get into it. All right, so now you guys have all got a general setup of your leaning and your pressure that you want to put into your sticks and your whole button layout on your controller. Then you got some mods in your game, and now you're thinking like, hey, I'm starting to get the hang of this, but why am I tucking the front end going into corners? Well, I could probably tell you right now that it's because you're not used to the front brake pressure in this game, and it does need adjusted. And I'm going to start this video off right now with an adjustment to the front brake that might help you a little bit. We're going to hit escape right now. We're going to go into settings. We're going into settings. We're going to hit the brake. The rear brake is different, or the brake is the front brake, and then the rear brake is different. Now, some people run combined brakes. I don't. Coming from Milestone Games, there was 2 different brakes, and that's how I do. If you run combined brakes, this is going to be different, so don't listen to this. But if you're running just left trigger, let's just say is your front brake, try these out. So go to your brake, give it a little bit of a dead zone, and then drop or put the linearity up just a little bit. Making it non-linear gives it, gives it more precision in the first point at the input. So you want to go up just a little bit so it's a little bit less precise, so that way it's not as gnarly. Check smoothing, and then put your press up to like 37, about where I have it right now. What press does is it kind of prevents it, just like we were saying from everything else, it prevents it from being instantaneous. And then your gain, which is how much pressure it is when it actually pulls in. If you're at 100%, like when you pull it in, it's going to be like when you pull your trigger in all the way, it's going to be 100% of your entire front brake. Drop it down to like 74. The reason why I say drop it down is because when you're coming into the front or coming into a corner and you're using the front brake, it's going to lock up real easy if you're not being light on it. And if you're not a simulator guy, this is a really tough concept to get, so it takes a while to get used to it. So let's get back into the game. All right, so we're back in game right now, and we got this left-hander right in front of us that goes into some rollers on MX Bikes Club. And if you know this track, because it's a stock track in the game, you could actually go and test this yourself. The first thing that I want to talk about, though, is when you're entering this corner, it's going to be a roller section to an inside roller right 180. Now, the most important thing is to make sure you don't lock up the brakes. Well, how do you use less brakes and still stop? You use engine braking. So what you're going to do is you're going to downshift as much as possible until you think that you're starting to slow down while using less front brake because you're going over a mound, and it's going to make your front end light. I'll give you an example right now, and then we'll talk about it again through the editor. All right, so we're coming through this roller section right here, and I'm in 3rd gear. I'm going to slam down to first and lightly use the front brake, lean into the corner, and roll on the throttle while shifting up. What shifting down through these rollers is going to do is it's going to prevent me from getting any extra hop, also while allowing me to set up for the corner just right and roll through just like that. Alright guys, have you ever went into a corner and wondered why this happens to you? Tucking the front end, which becomes one of the most frustrating things in MX Bikes, the game. Well, with those settings that I just gave you, it's actually going to be a little bit harder to do that. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, but you'll get to the point where you'll start getting used to that pressure and you won't pull it in, or pull your trigger in, I guess, as fast, and you won't lock up the front end, preventing you from tucking the front end, at least whenever you're going into a corner that's relatively smooth. Once the erode kicks in and you're on a rougher track, it does change, but utilize those settings to your advantage and play with them yourself. My settings I just gave you were a little bit of a baseline. And don't be on the gas and brake at the same time. Being on the gas and brake at the same time causes this. Notice how I wasn't really going anywhere and my rider was bouncing all around and eventually slid out. Even though I wasn't that leaned over, at one point in time, my front tire started to lock up and it prevented myself from getting through the corner efficiently. All right, guys, so let's try this. Come over the jump, hammer down on the throttle, and then let off and do all your braking without the throttle on. Then roll on the throttle and continue on. What that does is that keeps your front end from locking up, and every time you hit the gas in this game, your bike wants to stand up, just like in real life. If they always tell riders at coaching schools and stuff to not be choppy on the throttle. Being choppy on the throttle stands the bike up in the corner, which you want to roll on just like in real life. Slowly braking in and letting off the throttle and then rolling it back on is the best way to enter corners in MX Bikes. If you don't know what engine braking is, it's whenever you downshift and you use the motor to actually slow you down. It's going to put pressure on the chain and it's going to slow the rear tire down. In real life, you would get this chatter, but in this game, it does a really good job of killing all your momentum without actually using brakes. The best place to use it is coming into corners that don't really have a rut or berm to hold you, and you need to kind of start apexing the corner on something flat. We're going to utilize the technique that we used in the last episode where you weight the outside foot and engine braking without using any of the front or rear brake at all. I'll give you an example right now. Okay, so we're coming up to this jump right here. After we roll it, it's a flat corner pretty much. We're going to downshift, and then we weight the outside foot, and we didn't have to use any of the brake at all. Again, right here, I'm in third, downshift, weight the outside foot, and roll on the throttle. I'm not using any brake at all. I'll try to do a couple of corners without using the brake at all and downshifting. So I'm going to hammer on the throttle right here, and I'll even downshift to first, weight the outside foot, and then click up a gear. I kept up with my Ghost, who was using the front brake right there, without even using the front brake myself. All right, so one more example of engine braking right here. Downshifting, sitting down for the corner, and then rolling on the throttle. I didn't do the best job right there, but I still made it through the corner without using the brake at all. If you can get this technique down all while using the brake, you can enter corners faster than your competitors and get really good at this game. All right, guys, so we switched over to Unadilla for this next portion of the video, and we're going to talk about going up hills in this game. Now, I'm willing to bet that you guys who are new to MX bikes are really struggling with hills in this game, and you're probably doing something like this. I know I was victim to this for like the first, I don't even know how many hours playing this game, but I figured out that surprisingly, you actually stay sitting and lean back going up the hills. Now, to give you an example of this, not only am I going to try to get the most momentum coming around this corner, but I'm also going to try and square it to the portion where I am facing directly up the hill so I don't have to do any turning with my left stick. Going to stay sitting, and then I'm going to lean back once I start going up the hill. But make sure that when you're doing this, you're rolling on the throttle and not slamming it so hard that you're spinning the rear tire. That's when you start losing traction. It should look something like this. Now you can even do this by upshifting a few gears to really lug it and make sure that you don't break traction. And to give you another example, there's another portion of Unadilla that has a pretty steep hill. So say you're trying to go outside and double this, but you don't clear it hard enough. Once you get set up, you're going to sit down and then slightly lean back, and it's going to set you up really good for that uphill. Let's see if we can get up this hill one more time without messing it up. Notice how I started breaking it loose a little bit right there? I was getting a little bit too hard on the throttle. So when you're going up hills, make sure that you guys are rolling on real slow and leaning back just slightly. You don't want to lean back all the way, because if you lean back all the way, I think you start to break loose again. So for hills, that's really the main thing that I wanted to touch on. I know it was really short, and you guys would definitely notice it as soon as you guys get into game. Please give it a try, and let me know if you guys find a different way to get up a hill. But I noticed that for me, that's probably the best way to get up a hill without swapping out. All right, guys. Now for the moment that you've all been waiting for. Do you want to whip like this? Or like this? And this? Then let's talk about a few different ways that you can make that happen. So that way you can maximize your fun in MX bikes now that you got your turning down and everything. Whipping is the best way to maximize your fun while playing MX bikes. Regardless of how fast you're going, as long as you're throwing absolute sick whips, who cares? You're having fun and you look sick while doing it. So one way that I suggest that you learn to whip is by standing up the face the first couple times. There are ways that you can whip off the face sitting down, and we'll get into that a little bit later. As I'm coming up to the face right here, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to turn with the left stick and lean back with the right one. It kind of rotates it around, and you're going to use the gas gyro to bring the rest of the whip around. Again, coming up to the face of this jump, I'm sitting, and I'm going to stand up and turn and lean back. I did a little bit of an over rotation there. Turning with the left stick and leaning back with the right one really pitches you into a sick, kind of, I don't even know, just traditional style whip. Another way to whip is staying sitting down, and as soon as you take off, you stand up. Kind of slows the whip down a little bit, or you can stay sitting and do one of those and then maybe stand up midway through. It's all about playing with the standing and sitting while riding, because it forces your rider into a different position and whips the bike around better. There are ways to do oppos, and I found out that standing up and then going up the face and turning up in weird different directions, it could force you into an oppo. So I'm on Paletta V2, which is a pretty generic track, but it is good for learning how to whip. In this game, you can stay sitting through a lot of whips, but kind of puts you into weird positions, so standing and sitting definitely changes it a lot. There are many different ways to make your whip bigger than even what I'm doing right now, and one way to do that is by standing up before you come up to the face, turning, and then sitting down partially through. But that's what happens whenever you go a little too big. You start doing like this weird corked out backflip, like 360 thing. So timing is perfect, or it has to be perfect whenever you're doing this. Following after what I was just saying, let's try it again. See how it flicks it around, makes the whip a little bit bigger. Now, this isn't the only way to whip in this game, but standing and sitting through the air is one way to control the trajectory of your bike. Not easily, but a little bit easier than just staying in one position. See, when you sit down a little bit too far, you do a little bit of an over rotation of the whip, so it kind of makes it a little wonky. So finding that right timing is pretty much paramount in any whip in this game. I'll stay sitting on this one. It kind of tossed it a little too big, and I don't know how I saved that. Another way to ensure you get a pretty good whip and are also able to bring it around is by letting off the throttle and using the gas gyro to bring it around. Kind of whips it back. And anybody that knows how to whip in real life knows that this is one way that people always bring whips back. When you listen to people like Tyler Bierman and all those guys in X Games, they throw whips and it's just tapped out the whole time off the rev limiter. Now, using the rev limiter in this game does work, but sometimes you have to play with the throttle in the air to get your whip around. And then also, if you noticed right there how I landed leaning forward, since I knew I wasn't going to make my rotation all the way back, if you lean forward, it kind of helps you slide the back end around on a bad landing. See how I'm leaning forward? That's the only time you should really be doing a full lean whenever you're doing anything. Let's try it again. Stay leaning forward, and it kind of propels you forward and keeps you on two wheels. Alright guys, so if you made it this far in the video, I really appreciate it, and thank you so very much. If you liked the video, please just drop a like down below, and maybe even think about subscribing. It would help me a ton, and it shows me that whatever I'm doing here is actually helpful to you guys. Now, I know I didn't do the craziest job of explaining it, but I'm kind of just giving you a general idea so that way you guys can try it for yourself. This is one of those games where I cannot teach you how to actually play it. You just have to get a general feel for it and just go and give it a shot yourself. I could probably go more in detail if we rode together or something, but as of right now, I kind of think it's more beneficial that you guys just see a similar way to do it and you guys try it on your own. Now, I have a lot of fun making these, and if you guys actually want to hang out more and ask me more questions, you can follow me at twitch.tv/razzles126, or you can shoot me a message on Instagram at razzles.126, which is right below me right there. Seriously, guys, it means a lot. All the feedback has been fantastic, and I'm having a lot of fun on MX bikes. So thank you guys so very much for sticking by, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.